So yes, again, the idea of this is not a class essentially. No, was more to have a conversation. Usually, the people has question about these things, and this kind of class was an excuse to try to answer some of these questions as the previous one. So what I was saying, originally the plan is to have a couple of these conversations. One is to date, um, what I would talk not for 1 hour, don't worry, but in, in terms of what is the cybersecurity, but especially what is matter for us as a normal user, let's say that we are, and maybe the common sense rules that we have in this virtual world, and most important, maybe the common threats that we have in the cyberspace, and maybe a couple of words about what is phishing and ransomware. Also, we have a second class or a second conversation next week. The idea is to go a little bit deeper in some of these examples, like, for example, recent hackings and companies that maybe we are using and why that's matter when you see on the TV, security and the blockchain that can be relevant and also connected with the other classes in blockchain and cryptocurrency that we had a few weeks ago. And just to give you also for the people who is watching this, some recommendation of something that is so-called data detox. It's essentially some activity or some task that you can take time to clean your history on the internet and to try to avoid some of these data collection that is happening constantly. And finally, what is a VPN and Tor, and what are the different of these tools that are first used only by experts, but now everybody is to say, buying a VPN service, or what that means basically. So in terms of cybersecurity, what is cybersecurity here? So once again, the idea is to have this discussion about what matters in our life. We spend most of the many hours a day and a week on the internet. So basically, even if it's not a physical space, still we manage many of our life there, and that's things important to us, and obviously for our families and the children that we have with us. So one of the things that I tried to address this conversation was to have a couple of questions here. So one is when you are on the internet, asking to yourself, take 1 second, 2 seconds to say what, why I'm doing this particular action, why I'm clicking here, why I'm doing this. It sounds very simple, but we do it so many times that we tend to do it automatically, and that's exactly where the problem sometimes starts. Another very important point, and I found in people who asking me on this, is that when they are always imagine this picture of a hacker, a human. But most of the time, a guy in a basement who is trying to hack into your data, into your computer, or into cell phone, or hear your microphone, etc. So unless you are a diplomat or let's say a president of state or somebody who manage a multinational, most probably what we are dealing with is with robots. We're not with a person who's targeting us, but with a person who has written software, or a group of people who wrote software that essentially scan and travel through the internet, looking for patterns, looking for weaknesses, and extract as much information as possible. So this is the thing that we need to understand, that we are fighting, or let's say dealing with robots, not with people that try to go into our computer. So if we try to avoid some of these automatic behavior, so this common behavior that this software is programmed to look for, we may avoid some of these threats. Basically, that's the second point. So in terms of our life, again, we spend our personal, financial, shopping, professional, obviously we work with this. Even more now, we even have healthcare. We have online now medical appointments through the internet. So all this is embedded basically on the internet, and more, especially again with the youngest people, this will be even more important. So something that sometimes can be naive is just to come back a little bit and understand how the internet works, how these agencies and these companies may use of the data, and how we can be a good user of this. So why matters to my family or myself in this case, I have a short video here that I found very fun, and it's 2 minutes on how Mark Zuckerberg explained the internet to the people, to the Congress in this case.
Well, how do you sustain a business model in which users don't pay for your service?
Senator, we run ads.
If I'm emailing within WhatsApp, does that ever inform your advertisers?
No, we don't see any of the content in WhatsApp. It's fully encrypted.
Right, but is there some algorithm that spits out some information to your ad platform? And then let's say I'm emailing about Black Panther within WhatsApp. Do I get a Black Panther banner ad?
Senator, Facebook systems do not see the content of messages being transferred over WhatsApp.
Yeah, I know, but that's not what I'm asking. I'm asking about whether these systems talk to each other without a human being touching it.
Senator, I think the answer to your specific question is if you message someone about Black Panther on WhatsApp, it would not inform any ad.
Okay.
There have been reports that Facebook can track a user's internet browsing activity even after that user has logged off of the Facebook platform. Can you confirm whether or not this is true?
Senator, I want to make sure I get this accurate, so it would probably be better to have my team follow up.
So you don't know?
I know that people use cookies on the internet, and that you can probably correlate activity between sessions. We do that for a number of reasons, including security and including measuring ads to make sure that the ad experiences are the most effective, which of course people can opt out of.
Will Facebook offer to all of its users a blanket opt-in to share their privacy data with any third-party users?
Congresswoman, yes, that's how our platform works. You have to opt in to sign into any app before you use it.
Could somebody call you up and say, I want to see John Kennedy's file?
Absolutely not.
Could you, if not, could you, not would you do it, could you do it?
In theory.
Do you have the right to put my data, a name on my data, and share it with somebody?
I do not believe we have the right to do that.
Do you have the ability?
Senator, the data is in the system, so...
Do you have the ability?
Technically, I think someone could do that, but that would be a massive breach. So we would never do that.
It would be a breach. Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
Thank you, Senator Kennedy. Senator Baldwin's up next.
Thank you.
So the reason of this video, I hope the sound was okay.
Yeah, it was good.
Again, it's a kind of fun in some sense, but it's very, the point here is that if the people who sometimes try to control this kind of company don't even know how it works, no, it's funny to see them, how they need to be explained in a very naive way how it works. So because most of the people, including this, they are not alone. They have a bunch of people behind them that supposed to prepare for all this conversation, all these questions, don't understand that we are dealing with machines. So sometimes happens
Well, how do you sustain?
They think that we are dealing with a person again that is able to read or somebody. So I mean, I found it, it's quite old, it's 2 years, but it's still very much valid in terms of 3 years, sorry, in terms of the issue that we still need to understand that we are not dealing with humans looking for our information, but for the robots that they are doing it. So one of the concepts that I wanted to, again, put here is come back to how a web page works, basically, and how the emails, in a very simplistic way. I have a couple of videos also here. And essentially, some of these questions are important because most we are using not only web page, but especially what they call cloud computing. Essentially, you are putting all your information on the cloud and what it means, these cookies and what they target. So I will help you. I have another video. This is part of another class I prepared. So I will put some of this conversation because it's myself here. So maybe you don't need to see me twice. But what is important here is how the internet works, basically. How when you connect to a web page, and let me just talk myself here in the video to see what I mean. So to understand the possible threats that you can find on the internet right now. So without more introduction, let's remember how a website essentially works for you. So as a user, you will have your computer, in this case your desktop or your mobile device, and you have a URL. That's the address of the website. So you will request through your server internet provider this website. Essentially what it goes is to another computer, in this case a server somewhere in the world, and that server, in the very simplistic but still a realistic way, is essentially a computer that hosts a set of files, and that set of files is the website that you want to access. So here, what you will find is, again, a collection of files that contain text, can contain some multimedia, some music, why not? Okay, and once you made a request, you made a call for the website, the server to, again, this internet provider send back to you this information. So return some information to you. So if we put the number here, number 1, if we make a zoom into your screen, let's say, you will see the web browser. And the browser, independently of what you are using, can be Firefox, Chrome, Internet Explorer, Safari, Tor. There are many options there. What you will have, again, and this is crucial, your URL. So imagine that this is www.bank.com. So this is your bank, for example. So again, looking in what the browser is showing to you, you can see maybe a video, some commercial, maybe some apps, some information, but even more important, some way to interact with the website. So how to send back some information, how to identify yourself to the server, to your bank server. So this is usually done, again, using a form. And the most common way is a form where you have to put your login and your password. Essentially, you have to identify yourself, and so the server will cross-check with some database, essentially a series of tables, and say, yes, I know who you are one of our users, you can access to your information. So again, we are talking in a hypothetical example, a bank, it can be your social network, can be any kind of service where you need to authenticate in order to access to the services. So let's imagine now, again, that you have a URL. So it's very important to have the right URL. Why? Because imagine that in this case, you are not in bank, but in bond.com. A very simple difference that can make essentially not go to the server that was originally intended, but in fact what you are seeing is a website that is hosted in another server, in a server that is managed by the hacker. So this person or these people essentially what is trying is to take you to the wrong web page. But there are very small changes in the URL, but this is basically the address of the server, the address where the website is. So we'll present to you essentially the same information, but once you fill the form, once you send your credentials, they will go essentially to the wrong server, and they will host now. They will have now your ID again, at least in this website, in this particular server, in this particular service that is hosted in the wrong URL. So when they do this, essentially they are carrying with them your ID in this place, and they can now access to the real server, to the real bank, to the real social network, and in this case, get access to your information. So it's very important to know where we are before to give our information, because the makeup, let's say the design of the website is very easy to copy. So we have to be very careful where we are, and we will study much in detail in our exercise how to identify fake and good URLs. So, but as you see, if you are in the wrong place, you can fill exactly the same form with your real information, and this information, in fact, will be hosted in a wrong server, in a server set up by a hacker or a group of people that essentially will try to use that information to get access to the real bank or to the real service. Or can happen another thing, and this is something that you can hear a lot in the news, happens that some of these server with again the bad guys, let's call it, essentially they will host not just yours information, but the information of many users that will essentially log into the wrong web page, into the URL star, the wrong one, and give the information. This information, after they usually put it in a package, they say, this is for sale. What that means is that many of the hackers will not use the information directly and go and log in as you. But they will say, okay, now I have the login and password of 10,000 people, 1 million people in this social network, in this bank, in this music streaming service, and sell it to somebody. This somebody will essentially use some of those users to steal some information or steal even money if they manage to get into the bank account. So essentially, these kind of this package go what they call, you know, the dark net or the dark internet. So it's very important to be in the right place, because if not, your information, your real server, will be used not by you, but by somebody else who bought this package and will go there, or will publish this on internet. So again, it's not the first time that we know that this information is revealed to the public, and many service providers have to say you have to change your login and your password because our system has been compromised, because somebody stole the data in their own server, or because essentially they were, and this is a very key word, they were phishing for this. So yes, I think, yes, my microphone is still on. Basically, what is important here is the reminder that most of the time it's not a person who is trying to steal us, because if you are Arturo, Maria, but because it's trying to collect as many as possible, and after these are usually packaged into, and you can find it if you go to the so-called dark web, find package of 300,000 credit cards number, and you pay $10 for American dollar for this. It's very common. And after, obviously, are these secondary users who use the data. So what is important also here is that sometimes happens that we click the wrong link, the so-called phishing. I have another 2 minutes about this. And you feel that nothing happens. You know, like you did this action, I say, okay, after you get scared, and after some point, okay, nothing happened, my computer is still working, but it's not today, it's not tomorrow, it's when these packages are released or are got by somebody else that you start to have troubles, not in a month, but even later, no? Especially, this is why people recommend also to change your password constantly, because sometimes you are recording this kind of database, and if you don't change your password, you can get hacked, as the people says, even 3, 4, 1 year later, just because you were keeping the same. So again, it's not to be, it's question, at least in my perspective, obviously just an opinion, to be a good user, a good worker, also a good buyer, and even a good product, let's say, because when we are in cybersecurity, it's not fighting a bad guy, but this kind of automatic software. So basically, this is something that everybody heard somewhere, is if you are not paying for the service, that means that you are the product. But this, at least in my perspective, is not to say to avoid to be the product. Sometimes it's you can have a trait where you can be a good product, they say, no, in the sense that you can still behave in a way that you take advantage of a particular service, you profit of them, and you give back some of your data, because at the end you have to pay in some way, but you don't need to give it, you don't need to give all to this kind of service provider, especially, and this is, I think, is it's important here, because sometimes you are not only dealing with your own data, see, but you are dealing also with somebody else's data. Again, mean that you are maybe working in a particular company, and in that case, if they steal your credentials, basically means that they can access to information that is private to your work, and you know, in a very simple mistake can make you lose your job just because I was not aware of that. Also, it will happen more constantly. We tend to feel like that these kind of threats are more into the computer, again, the big screen, like in the laptop or in the desktop where we have at home, and that the cell phone feel a little bit different. Feel like more secure for some reason. And obviously, more and more of our activities are moving from the desktop, from the laptop to the phone. And also, obviously, this kind of software are targeting more the mobile phones than the desktop computer, because essentially the public now are more in these kind of devices. So one of the key things that to keep in mind is, with all this at the end, is to diversify your IDs, essentially to have several emails, use it for several teams, maybe not the same nickname everywhere, and obviously keep safe your password in the sense that have different, I know it's gonna be painful. One of the recommendations usually is to have some of the browser, for example, Google Chrome or Firefox, allows you to generate very strong password that you don't need to remember, because the browser will remember for you. This is a middle ground, let's say, because you can still have different passwords for different services. So this is more secure. You still have a central way to host it, I mean, in your browser, but it's better than taking notes of that, or much better than just having the same password for everything. Something that is happening more frequently right now is that the internet, essentially what is created is a profile of who you are, you know? And obviously that's extremely important. For example, when you heard Mark Zuckerberg saying that they run apps, and the apps to have an effect, they need to know the client, the people that the likes, the cares, the behavior. So the targeting is more effective, so they can make more money. And again, saying like this is nothing wrong with that. The detail is when we allow to do it, or how much can be. One of the first things that can happen is, okay, they are trying to sell me, but I don't buy anything on the internet, so I don't really care. So many will say, for example, myself, I am not a person who buys too many things on the internet. But anyway, you will be involved in a bubble where you will see only things that happen that you like it. And that can be also be, in some sense, insecure, in the sense that you will be living in a particular area of the internet that is, and you will be losing another information that can be important for you. So this is some of the things that, in fact, government have been dealing with, and in particular here in Europe, we have this data protection regulation that it means that the companies, especially these very big companies, need to tell you that I need to provide some ways to that the user can know the data that they host, basically. And that's quite nice and very important also, but sometimes it's not very easy to find. So that's the other tricky part. Yes, the people will say, or this company will tell you, we have all this there, but where? No, where are you going to Facebook and download all your data and ask to clean some of this data? Or for example, Google, that is even more powerful because essentially it's recorded all what you are looking, all what you are reading. So I will not go into the details because again, I don't want to go for a long time. But here is a particular link I found extremely useful. I think if I click it here, you can see it, where you can, and a different of this video, these are only 1 minute, 50-second video, where Google explained very well where you can find all the data that they recorded, why they do it, and how they use it. And again, it's not very long. Some of these videos are 1.5 minutes maximum. And I found extremely useful, again, to recover back some of these things, to understand what they have. But because once again, maybe what they have is is your location, no? Everywhere you were. And maybe you want to know that, you can the only fact that you know this kind of information exists can make a very big difference in the change of the behavior that we want, for example, no? So again, this reference here, I found it quite useful, especially because now in the future, they will record more data. There is more Internet of Things. That means people is buying not only computers and phone to themselves, but they have a smart fridge and a smart car, smart lockers in the home, things that they can control through the phone. All these kind of apparatus will also record the information, and with the rise of artificial intelligence, will be even more critical to understand what they are collecting, because these machines are extremely smart and smarter than us at some point. No, so it's just to know where these things are, and it's up to you to decide to clean or just to be aware of what is happening. So the last thing I wanted to mention, the last couple of concepts, was this phishing and the ransomware. I think the next slide is just a continuation. No, not yet. So essentially, yes, the phishing is something well known, but it's important to mention again, is when weak apps or weak websites, because sometimes it happens that some websites are not very well done, so the hacker don't hack you, but hack the website. So what they do essentially, they change some of the information in the website, and the website itself is the real one, but it's some information inside that have been changed in order to redirect the user to another URL, like the video I just showed before. So in that case, it's also very important that even when we are in a particular website, if we need to interact with some kind of form, so if we are reading something, maybe we don't need to be that careful, that paranoid. But if at some point we need to fill a form because we need to send that information, it's always very important to check back into the URL, and just to be sure that you are in the same place, basically, or in the place that's supposed to be. And it doesn't take more than 2 seconds to read that before to start to fill. Again, some of these things are managed by bots, and we will mention in the next class what that means. Most of the phishing is done by email. That's something that most people know. But also, again, it's very important. We as humans are very curious. We want to know, and so sometimes we get an email with a link, and sometimes the temptation to see what is inside is very powerful. So this thing is very important to be sure that we are in the right place. So one thing that can be an advice, it's if you find an email and you are not sure, you can copy the link. You don't need to click it. You can copy it and paste it in your in a document, just in a text form, and see the URL once again. I will show if it's Google or if it's something else. So and most of this at the end happens to be a social engineering. So again, emails that are created by robots but feel more and more like a human. And this is why these artificial intelligence things are very worrying some point, because this technology will allow to people who want to steal information in a massive way to sound more realistic, and that's also something to take into account. And finally, the ransomware. Again, I just will have 2 words, and next week go a little bit deeper on that. But essentially, is a technique that allows external users to take control of your computer or your data. And we'll come back to this in the next slide. So the keyword, they were phishing. This is the continuation of the video, and this is only just 1-2 minutes more for the user. So how phishing works, essentially, and with this we will conclude this video. Essentially, you will get an email, it could happen, and we saw many of these many times. So this is email from somebody who says that this is Google, but instead of 2 L or 2 O, sorry, is 3. So very small change, and said to you, this is your account. We discovered there is some problems, so we will need you to please click in this link so you can provide a new password, because you need to change the password, because they explain to you and they scare you. Maybe they're telling you that if you don't change your password the next 2 days, your account will be deleted, or your access will be lost. So essentially, this link is sending you to our famous, or unfamous, URL star. So the star, the website, the server that is hosting a fake website. And this, instead of, so you will go there, you will insert your information, your login, your password one more time, and this will be hosted and later on sell to somebody else who can really do a lot of damage. So it's very important to understand, and we will have some exercise in this class to identify and to deal with this kind of spam emails that try to convince you to click a link, to download an application, to do some interaction with the internet that essentially compromise your privacy or your credentials, and that later on can be not just a problem for you, but it can be a problem for the company that you work for, because this can be, you know, the website about your social network, but maybe a website intended for your company. So the people wants to do some tricks to make some employees maybe to log into the wrong web page, to the wrong site, and to get access not to you, but to information in your company, or the information of the place where you are working right now. And of course, this is very, very problematic. So just to conclude, the cybersecurity is not just intended for individuals, but it's as well, we have to be clear that a lot of information that we manage is not just related to us as a person, but it's related maybe to our families, to our colleagues, and to our the company or the place that we work for. And so be aware of all these dangers. It's very useful not just to protect you, but to protect the people that you care, and the systems that are managed by you, if you are responsible for some particular system in your work. So yes, that was essentially again the message, that sometimes we are too scared about ourselves, but it's also important to remember that we are dealing with more information about the place that we work, or maybe our own company, and by the time that we realize the mistake is too late, because it happened months after you click in that particular wrong place. No? So and again, the last concept here was the ransomware. So essentially, it's a type of malware, and all this thing I was saying before about bad software. This is the way that it's called on the industry, malware. That essentially what it does is, there are 2 very classic, let's say, now in this space of what the ransomware is. One is that some emails that you get and says that they make a copy of particular information that you have in your computer, and they will make this information public if you don't pay to them. No? And again, with the rise of cryptocurrency that we see in the previous class, it's even easier to do it, because now there is a way they can ask you for some money in cryptocurrency. So it's very difficult, if it's not impossible, to track who is the person who is basically doing this ransomware and asking you for money and sometimes the people just do it, even when they don't know that they don't have anything. It's just a message in your computer. Maybe it's a pop-up window. For example, myself, I see working in the laboratory that I get emails written, the address where this email is coming is myself. So it's arturos.domoar.ch, for example, arturo.cern.ch. And that is very scary because in the email, they said to you that they are so powerful that they were able to enter into your computer and write an email as yourself to yourself. So it's like a way to prove to the victim that they are in power of your login or your password. This is not the case. There is many ways, not many ways, but it's a few ways to get this done. And that's very, very important also for people to know that even the email address, now you can write an email being somebody else. And again, I saw many of these threads when the people write being yourself, and part of the text that sometimes is sent in many languages is to say, hey, look, I am inside your computer, and the proof I am inside the computer is I am writing you an email from your own email address. But again, this is a trick, very, very smart, but a trick at the end. And they ask for some money because they say, oh, we went inside your computer, we found some compromised information, and you don't want to see this online, so pay us in 2 days or in this amount of Bitcoin, and everything is fine, and we will clean it. So these are targeting to users. And also what is happening is even more advanced is when this software that go into your computer, so again, because you click in a wrong link or because you install an application thinking that was legitimate, was in fact the application in the back end, as they said, in your computer, what it does is go through all your files and encrypt it. So essentially, you are one morning, and I also see people with this problem and asking for help. Unfortunately, it's very difficult, if it's not impossible, to help. In this case, what happened is that the malware encrypt all your information, so you are not able to access your own files because you need a key, you need a password, everything needs a password now. So of course, once again, it's very scary. You can access to your documents, to your job, and what is you will get also a message in your own computer that says you have 48 hours to send this amount of Bitcoin or Ether or something into this account, and they even point you to some tutorials to how to get cryptocurrency if you don't know how to do it. So in the way that you pay for that, and that is even more difficult. It's very, most of the time is obviously it's not recommended to pay, but also is that means that your file very probably will be not possible to recover back. So as a reminder of all this is also to have a backup or your important information in another disk in your house or in a cloud service that you are paying, but not to rely in your hardware. I mean, the computer they have in front of you, not just because can fall on the floor and break and you lose your data like this, but also because it can be hacked once again in this way. And unfortunately, again, under current technology, it's almost impossible to break this kind of code when it's encrypted already. But we will go a little bit more in the second class because I found it very interesting when this happened to companies more than to individual users, and it's very, very interesting. And with that, I finish. The idea again was to have an overview and hopefully trigger some ideas, some questions, or simply to help to understand a little bit more about this.
Yeah, I mean,
thank you.
No, I mean, first of all, I mean, thank you for all the hard work you put into this. It's, I think some of the points you raise are really spot on. All we have to do today is on the French radio, all they were talking about is how some hospitals are getting hostage to ransomware. And I know, for example, a specific target has also seems to be the elderly who want to have internet access to continue to communicate, but who panic very rapidly when they get emails targeting them specifically. So in this case, I thought your point about the backup is probably something that you should stress specifically in this, because there are so many easy backup systems that anybody can use. That worst case scenario, if you do get ransomware, well, yeah, you can just reformat your whole device if you want, but at least you haven't lost the data specifically. You triggered. I mean, I was wondering because if you don't mind answering those specific questions, maybe one thing that would be useful is there, and for the life of me, I can't remember the name, but at some point I read an article and then I went on to check that there were some sites who do a summary of a password leak. So you provide your password and they tell you, oh yeah, well based on this, we know that you're in this password leak and this password leak and this password leak. And I thought that was a really good eye opener of why it's good to change the email that you put in 6 years ago and you've been using for every single account because it has been compromised. But I can't remember what that site was.
Yes, I can point you. There is a couple of services. Firefox have one that is very good. Mozilla, better say, that is the company that manages Firefox.
Yeah.
That essentially you put your email and they scan those the very same thing I tell you. Once this is public, you can also go into the internet and buy some of these packages. And Google also have a service like this where they spot if your email was in one of these sites.
Yeah. So I mean, I think that would be really useful. And then just maybe two questions from your perspective. One is whenever when let's say I create a new account, I use Firefox and it tends to tell me, hey, do you want us to create a specific password for that? And I really hate it because it's a very complex password. But do you think, I mean, would you rather trust that and then have an online synchronization between your different Firefox browsers that you're using with this on your phone so that it remembers what that password is? Do you think that's safer than trying to remember what password you've put up?
I use it, in fact, yes. I think it's easier that use the same password in several places, and because again the cost can be very high. At the end, it's extremely helpful because the next time that you enter, you will have it there, and because it will remember. Obviously, the idea is that you don't have to. So it's a very useful, particular again coming from Firefox. That is a company that they different from Google. I will not say that it's bad, but they have different interests. Let's say it's to try to be more democratic. So the answer to your question, yes, I in fact I use it. Let's say.
Okay. And that vis-a-vis what they would call I guess a password vault or something like that.
Yes. I don't know how they call it, to be honest, but you have it after there. But it's happened more and more. Also, it's very important. Is that you will have more and more two-factor authentication. So I'm sure that you already have for some the webs. I was talking about the bank, no, for example. You also have maybe to log in also in your app and say yes. So it will be a second degree of security, an SMS that is sent to you, so you have to put a number. So obviously, all these things are in pro of being more secure. I will say that every time that you can have a two-factor authentication for things that matter for you, it's good to have it. And so this will decrease all this thing that was mentioned. But again, at the end is because the bad actor here knows this thing, the trick will always the same, try to send you to the wrong place, to click the wrong link. And if it's not anymore to access to your bank because now you need an app, they will try to send you to another place so they can access to your computer, that is or to your mobile. Because what you were saying, and that's the scary part, now you have all your password and Firefox have it there. So if they get into your computer, they can scan all these things and you will not lose one, but all of them.
And that is slightly scary, no? Which is why I'm sometimes hesitant to be trusting.
Yes. No, I understand what you mean. I think that it's still, I think it's still a good service because have different password always help you. And again, the thing that you need to be is careful when you install something to be sure it's coming from what you want, or something that you really, really want.
Okay. Well, then I guess I will be trying that as well. Okay. But for me, I mean, really useful and a real useful reminder also of some of the things I need to be telling my children. Look at the URL, I think would be the first one. Look for spelling mistakes, obviously. And I look forward to the second version of this then.
Thank you for being here. Yes, exactly. That was the reason for this conversation with the PTA. More to, again, we are maybe on the internet, but they are. It's true that they are, more internet native than us and already born with the cell phones in their hands, etc. But still, to be careful, to take a step back and to remind that it's not only that it's a few pictures in your phone that you can lose, but much more. And especially in the end, it can be very damaging because half of their life is on the internet. Maybe we have a picture when we were 20 years old and it's just cute, but for them can be, in the social point of view, very, very damaging.
Yeah, absolutely. Great. Well, listen, thank you very much.
Oh, thank you.
Spot on 7 o'clock, which is perfect. I guess.
Thank you so much.
No, thanks to you again for taking the time. Huh?
No, you're welcome.
Bye.
Bye.